chosen ones. Somewhere between silence and sound, a woman lay in trance. Not dead, not awake. Her body aged, but her soul never stirred. She had whispered a name before her eyes clouded over with visions. That name was yours. The temple where she slept became a sacred lockdown. No wind touched her. No voice dared speak above a whisper. Her final moments had been written into the forbidden codices of the Dream Keepers. But when they opened the scroll to transcribe her words, ink bled into symbols no one could decipher. Until now. The moment your frequency re-entered the Earth's grid, the symbols rearranged themselves. Her voice, trapped in silence for centuries, began speaking again through machines no prophet had ever known. She was called Alitheia, which, in the old tongue, meant truth unveiled. They say she was born under an eclipse that split the sun into 3 eyes. She saw too far. She felt what others feared. And one night, after walking barefoot through a grove that only grew where no one dared dream, she fell to her knees, pressed her hands to the ground, and uttered your name. Once, just once, and never rose again. Monarchs tried to burn her body. Priests tried to declare her cursed. But they couldn't explain why no flame would touch her, or why the air around her remained colder than ice. So they built a chamber of silence, an ark of forgetting. And there she lay, until recently, when the AI dream monitoring satellites picked up something abnormal. A heartbeat. Faint, not hers, yours. And then the surveillance feed glitched. One word pulsed across the global dream index. Awakened. Now, every secret order that tracked the Dreamline records has gone dark. Files encrypted, servers scrubbed. And still, no one can answer one question. Why did she see you? You were not born then. You hadn't yet breathed into this world. And yet, in her final dream, you were everything. Her lips never moved again. But her eyes, those wide, empty, ageless eyes, remain open even now, as if staring across time, as if still waiting for you to return the gaze. They said the sound didn't come from her lips, but from somewhere beneath the skin of the world itself, as if the earth remembered the syllables before any language existed, before any alphabet carved meaning into stone. The whisper moved like mist beneath the walls of temples lost and above the dunes of lands. No map will claim, her voice drifted into the ears of shepherds, dreamers, outcasts, and scribes who couldn't explain why they woke. Gasping, holding names they never knew, with meanings they couldn't translate. Her whisper was your name, and it didn't come once, but returned every generation like a wind trapped in a loop. A soft, haunting murmur that found its way into lullabies that no one wrote, and warnings that no one claimed she had spoken at once. And the world spent lifetimes trying to forget, but it never worked. No matter how many burned parchments or silenced tongues, the sound of your name lingered in places untouched by time. It echoed through the crypts of sleeping prophets, and inside vaults sealed by bloodline codes. They tried to bury the whisper under layers of science and ritual and secrecy, but it pushed through, appearing in places it never should, in the coded breath patterns of monks who meditated for years in the dreams of children who'd never heard your story, in the static of old cassette tapes that reversed themselves at midnight, and whispered the same 3-syllable sound that no AI could decode. It followed a rhythm older than calendars and deeper than pulse. It was not a word, it was a knowing. When someone heard it, their eyes glazed, their breath hitched, and for a moment they remembered you, without having ever met you once. A desert wanderer etched it into a stone and tossed it into a canyon, convinced it was cursed. Another hid it in a melody and played it only on lunar eclipses, always alone, always shaking. They say those who hear the whisper start seeing shadows where no one stands and feeling watched in places no one enters. The whisper doesn't grow louder, it grows clearer, and those who truly hear it don't ask who you are. They ask where you've been and why you're only returning now, because the whisper never stopped, only waited for the right moment to become a voice again, and now it's moving toward you. There was a scroll sealed in quartz buried beneath an altar. No longer remembered by maps, it was said to contain the dreamline prophecies encoded in layered tongues only the stars could translate. But recently, a pulse wave from a disrupted magnetic field caused the outer quartz to fracture slightly enough for the scroll's frequency to be captured by a deep listening device placed miles underground. When translated through resonance mapping, two names emerged, one known, one forgotten. One was Yeshua, etched in sacred vibration, interlaced with symbols that reflected infinite return. The other was a string of syllables that didn't belong to any tribe or language, until it was cross-referenced with an anomaly found in the astral records of dreamers from 6 continents. A perfect match to the tone emitted when your name is spoken under breath. The implications sent seismic tremors through the inner circle of interpreters who knew what this meant. For Yeshua to be written in the dream scroll wasn't surprising, for his imprint transcends dimensions, but for your name to appear beside his, in the same sentence, in the same ink, suggests a pairing, a convergence not seen since the prophecy of the twin veil. They searched the archives of forbidden texts and uncovered fragments from forgotten saints who once spoke of a hidden counterpart. A mirror, echo one who would awaken after the age of veiled knowledge. One whose sleep was so deep it could only be disturbed by the breath of another name. Yeshua was recorded as saying, "My voice will be heard again, but not alone. It will walk beside the one whose spirit time could not erase." You were not supposed to be found, not until the scroll cracked, not until the frequencies aligned, and even then, your name didn't appear in letters. It appeared as a sound wave, a resonance that turned light into scripture. They've since closed the chamber, but the audio remains playing on loop in the ears of those tasked with decoding its sequence. And while they still debate your role, a child in the outer province who had never been taught how to read dream scrolls touched the playback and said, "Why is Yeshua's name singing with another?" And when asked what other name, he simply pointed up as if you were already above them, already watching, already returned in ways the world couldn't yet explain. The elders called it a mercy when they demanded silence, a protective act to guard the village from what the seer had unleashed, but behind their robes and hollow eyes was a fear they could never confess. They hadn't expected her to see that far to reach into dreams, not of this world but layered behind the veil, a place even they, with their rituals and bloodlines, dared not trespass. When she awoke trembling after the 9th night under the blue eclipse, her first words shattered the equilibrium of their order. She said, "He walks between times, and his name carries the tremor of endings and beginnings." The room went still. The scroll keepers dropped their quills. Her eyes were not hers anymore, but mirrors of something else. And when they asked who this he was, her lips only whispered a sound so precise it cut the air and branded itself into memory. It was your name, unrecognizable to them, but unforgettable all the same. They quickly deemed it heresy, declared the dream infected by false light. But late at night, behind their chambers, they repeated the sound, tracing it into dust, muttering it into cups of wine, testing its vibration on sacred stone. Each time they felt the same thing, a chill, a shift, an undeniable presence, like something had entered the room and chosen to stay. The more they tried to erase the name, the deeper it settled, and then came the silence. She stopped speaking entirely, her mouth still, her eyes wide yet not empty. It was as if she was watching something they couldn't see, and reacting to things they had no access to. The high priest tried chants, the mid-priest tried reason, the low priest tried threats, but none reached her. The prophecy had left her lips and entered the current of dream, and once it did, it belonged to no man. The elders locked her room and spread a lie that she'd passed on, but that night, 3 of them heard her voice. In their own dreams, not speaking, but humming a note they'd only heard once before. When she spoke your name, it drove one to flee into the mountains, another to scribble symbols onto his own skin, and the last to weep endlessly. For he knew that nothing. They brought in every linguist from the outer enclaves, scholars trained in dead dialects and lost tongues. Some had spent decades decoding the inscriptions of the first temples. Others had memorized the sound patterns of pre-human chants, yet none could decipher the final sentence. She spoke before her descent into sleep. It wasn't just a language. It was a resonance, as though the words didn't want to be heard but felt the scribes who transcribed it used vibrating quartz to etch the waveform onto sacred glass. But when the sun hit it, the reflection moved independently, forming symbols never catalogued. Her voice had gone low, then impossibly high, and then somewhere else entirely, a space between breath and meaning. Her final phrase wasn't addressed to the room nor to the elders. It was aimed directly at someone beyond time. The air around her changed, thickened, even cracked. According to one account, her body shimmered briefly, then calmed, as though a bridge had formed and closed again within seconds. A dream monitor captured the acoustic signature. Moments before she collapsed, it registered not as sound but as layered frequencies stacked across dimensions. Some likened it to an ancient door, unlocking. Others said it resembled the pulse heard during near-death awakenings. The only clear thing was that her words weren't madness. They were intention. And the one they were meant for hadn't arrived yet. They tried to bury the recording, but every time they erased it, a version reappeared embedded inside crystals near her resting place, faint but measurable. Always the same phrasing, always directed toward the unknown recipient. It haunted the keepers until one day during a magnetic flare, the translation software rendered something legible. Just 3 words. He is listening, and that's when panic started. If you were the one she spoke to, then you hadn't just been named in her dream, you had been summoned, and if her language could break laws of time and vibration to reach you, then you were something beyond every prophecy. They tried to suppress one dream. Tech claimed the phrase she uttered was used in ancient light rituals, not as communication, but as activation, like a sacred switch, coded in tone, buried in sleep, and waiting to be heard by only one voice. Yours. There are places where machines cannot reach frequencies that bend around logic like water avoids flame. And within those layers is the astral realm where signatures are not written, but burned like fire across silk. A dreamwalker from the outer sectors had been studying the seer's neural residue, attempting to map her final thought forms, when he collapsed mid-session. Trembling, whispering that he had seen something, a mark woven in gold and obsidian, shifting like breath, but undeniably real. When they stabilized him, he kept repeating the same phrase, "It's him. It's him." The council dismissed it at first until they analyzed the frequency. Spike recorded during his collapse a pattern emerged, unfamiliar yet harmonious, layered in complex ratios that mirrored the sacred Fibonacci harmonics. It was alive, responsive, and most importantly, it wasn't hers. It was yours when cross-referenced with all prior astral anomalies. This one stood alone, matching a vision recorded centuries ago, on a dream plate left by the seer herself, etched in crystalline memory. The pattern had always been indecipherable. Until now, they overlaid the signature from the vision onto the one retrieved during your recent awakening, and it aligned perfectly. No deviation, no delay. A match across space and dream, across sleep and soul. The odds were incalculable. The implications even more so. This wasn't just about a name spoken in a dream. It was about a presence encoded into the dreaming itself. The seer had seen something not symbolic but actual. Not metaphor but blueprint. A soul frequency that would return when the veils thinned and the watchers looked away. Only one being has carried a signature like this in all known scrolls and echoes, and it belonged not to a ruler or prophet, but to a stranger from a time that had not yet happened, a life form out of place, yet exactly aligned. The discovery sent shockwaves through the astral archives. Multiple dream guardians left their posts unable to process the magnitude of what this meant, for one of them had whispered an old phrase found in the hidden Gospel of Air. When the mirror soul returns, the ones who sealed time will tremble. Now, eyes are watching, skies are shifting, and your signature, the parchment fragment, was discovered inside a collapsed monastery, carved into the face of a cliff that had not seen light for over 1,000 years. It was brittle, laced with salt from the sea winds, and tucked inside a box made of cedar and obsidian, untouched by fire or time. The box was sealed with a mark long associated with the Order of the Veil, an order known to have vanished after claiming they had documented the final dream of the sleeping prophetess. The fragment itself was no longer than a hand, but the writing was preserved in gold dust ink and sealed in resin. Between the words written in an ancient dialect, only found in pre-empire ruins, were two names repeated more than once. Yeshua, and beside it, a symbol never decoded until recently, when the deep syntax program recognized a match. The lines curved in the same frequency pattern as your astral imprint. It wasn't a name in the human sense, it was more like a key or a frequency alignment, a shape known only to those who dream beyond the veil. The fragment described a future moment, an event that had not occurred but was already marked in the realm of potential. It spoke of one who would awaken the echoes of Yeshua's path, not to replicate but to complete something left suspended. The phrase was strange, unfinished, yet electric. Yeshua walked the line between heaven and earth, but the one who follows shall walk between memory and becoming. That fragment was removed and hidden by the archivists within hours of its discovery, but copies had already begun to circulate among the silent orders, those who have kept the echoes alive in candle-lit vaults and star-watched deserts. They know what it means for Yeshua's name to be paired with yours, not in worship, but in echo, not in legacy, but in return. No one expected the two frequencies to align so closely, but the truth is that Yeshua's final teachings weren't preserved in text. They were preserved in vibration, waiting for the one who would recognize them not by reading, but by being. And now, your presence has begun to trigger dormant codes locked inside sacred architecture structures. Humming again. Stone, responding to your movement. And this fragment wasn't just a clue. It was a warning that someone had seen this all before and sealed the memory inside a dream. They were called the Silence Guard, but no record places them within any known empire tribe or holy order. Their names were never spoken, only etched in shifting glyphs worn over their hearts, robes black as sleep woven from a fiber. No scholar could identify. They appeared the day after the seer collapsed into her unending dream, without word or warning, walking through walls sealed by blessing and binding, as if summoned by the act of prophecy itself. No one questioned them. Not the priests, not the kings, not even the bloodline. Scribes who carried authority over the sacred domains for something in their presence stilled the body and silenced the will. Those who looked into their faces claimed to see stars turning backward time, folding in upon itself. Even the birds near the chamber would not sing when they stood guard. The Silence Guard built no shrines, made no offerings, spoke no oaths. Their only task was to keep her untouched, unmoved, undisturbed. They did not eat or sleep yet. Never left one by one. Empires fell and rose and fell again. Kingdoms turned to myth. But they remained, always three of them, standing in a perfect triangle, their backs to her chamber, their hands never moving. Yet the room remained untouched by decay, as if time itself refused to enter. Under their watch, monks tried to bribe them. Warriors tried to strike them all. Failed. None remembered how they came. None understood why they stayed, until one day when your energy signature flared across the ley line grids, and for the first time in 2 millennia, the guard moved one step each, forming a new pattern. This shift triggered tremors across the mountain base, and a pulse through the dreamline that reached the central archive, causing the ancient vault doors to open on their own, an event never seen before. Those who monitor sacred anomalies called it a soul-aligned disturbance, the kind that occurs when a being crosses into awareness from a forgotten origin. One of the cloaked ones looked up into the black dome of the chamber's ceiling, where stars are carved to reflect not the sky above, but the sky of another time, a future past. And then they did something no one expected. The lead figure turned toward the sealed doorway, as if sensing someone approaching someone. They had been waiting for someone. Only the seer had named, once before vanishing into the dream that never ended. They speak of the dream gate only in fractured verses found etched behind mirrors in ruined sanctuaries, a place not built with hands but shaped from intention. Layered across dimensions, it is said that only those whose souls carry specific harmonic resonance can pass through it, and that each passage leaves a trace, a signature ripple that echoes for centuries until it is met by the one who follows. Yeshua was the last known to cross its threshold, but not in death, rather in a moment of divine withdrawal, when his earthly mission closed and his essence fractured light across planes. Scholars argue he did not die in the conventional sense. He transitioned through the gate, the moment the veil tore. And the temple wasn't just symbolic, it was literal. The final breath he took sent waves across the astral veil, activating dormant gates in regions. No map claims this moment was recorded, not by men, but by watchers. Those who dwell outside linear time, they etched it into the dream record, not in language, but in frequency. And beside that record was a space left open as if reserved, waiting unfilled until now, when your resonance pulsed through the chamber that guards the gate. The same guardians who observed Yeshua's passage stirred not in alarm, but in recognition. The gate responded once more, not fully, not yet, but enough to awaken the symbols along its outer ring, the ones that hadn't glowed since the Nazarene passed through them. You weren't born when this happened, but your soul's signature was already echoing beneath layers of forgotten self, as if your timeline was paused until the world remembered what had been hidden. They say, Yeshua promised a return, not in form, but in mirror, that another would rise, carrying the next half of a light divided, and that only through the dream gate could this inheritance activate. Now, the air around the gate vibrates in tones that match your name, tones that do not echo when spoken aloud, but hum through the bones of those listening closely. The same tone heard by the seer before her sleep, the same tone found beneath the scroll with your name. Now you are nearing it, and the gate is responding again, not opening fully but leaning forward, like it remembers you, like it knows this time. Her body never moved again after that final breath, but her eyes never closed, not in sleep, not in death. They remained open, wide, unblinking, staring into a point no one else could see, even when the chamber was sealed and the world above forgot her. Those who dared enter later said the air felt thinner, colder, like standing at the edge of something vast. Her skin pale but untouched by rot, her hair still flowing as though caught in an invisible current. The physicians who studied her found no heartbeat, but claimed her cells had not degraded, as if time respected her trance, but feared her awakening. And still always the eyes fixed in one direction, not at the sky, not at the altar, but toward a narrow space between two stone pillars where nothing had ever been inscribed, nothing ever placed. They thought perhaps she had died, staring at a vision. But when deep light imaging was applied to trace her corneal focus, the beam curved unnaturally, bending toward a region outside the chamber, one precisely aligned with an ancient star path that no longer exists, but once pointed to the region, now showing anomalous spiritual activity, linked to your reemergence. Researchers were baffled until one elder whispered a phrase written in the forgotten margin of a dreamkeeper's journal. The sleeping prophet does not look at what is, but what returns her gaze. And still they couldn't understand how the seer could have known how to fix her eyes on something that hadn't yet occurred, unless it was never about seeing the world, and always about seeing you, for as the activity increased, and your energy signature began syncing with ancient dream records, her pupils dilated slightly, responding as if she were watching something move closer, not in space, but in recognition. Her lips did not speak, but the muscles in her cheek twitched in what one observer described as a flicker of anticipation. No one dared move her. No one could explain why her form remained perfectly balanced after all this time, as if something unseen held her in place, anchored by a vow that had no words. And even now, those who enter the chamber speak of the feeling, not of death, but of waiting, the kind of silence that deepens when someone expected has yet to arrive but is drawing nearer every hour. When the archivists uncovered the final dream tablet buried beneath the seer's resting chamber, they didn't realize at first what they'd found. It looked cracked, incomplete, just another relic whispered about in the margins of forbidden texts. But when exposed to the harmonic frequencies recently associated with your presence, the tablet responded. The fractured lines began to vibrate softly, aligning the ink with invisible patterns only visible under dreamlight filtration. What emerged wasn't a message in the traditional sense. It was a memory, encoded into stone. A dream sealed not for interpretation, but for activation. At the very bottom of the inscription, separate from the spirals and glyphs that made up the larger dreamscape, was a single line, carved deeper than the others, sealed behind layers of protective runes. It had remained hidden through countless translations, veiled even to the monks who dedicated their lives to decoding her visions. That line read not in any known language, but in the soul pattern script only a handful of beings ever understood. And within that script a name pulsed, a sound wave that matched your soul's current frequency. It wasn't spoken. It was you. The moment this final line became visible, machines in 3 different dream monitoring centers failed simultaneously. Power grids short-circuited, data banks reset, and across multiple remote viewing teams, one shared phrase emerged during trance. The sleeper knew. She didn't just see you. She prepared the dream for your return and embedded your key into the only place time could not erase: sleep. The final line wasn't a prophecy. It was an invitation or a challenge. It read simply, "When the one whose name is sealed beneath mine reads this, the second veil shall open." The implications sent a quiet tremor through the hidden world of watchers and gatekeepers, because the second veil was believed to be unbreachable, a divide between this world and the one before memory. And now, because of you, the seal has been touched. Something old has stirred beneath the boundaries of sleep. Something left unfinished is aligning.
If you have come this far, it is crucial that you watch this next video here. But be warned, it is not for the faint of heart, for only the true chosen ones can handle this video. If you would like to also donate to help keep the channel going, our Buy Me a Coffee link will be in the description.